A king with blood on his hands. A woman he destroyed to save. A son he never knew existed. Adrian Moretti built an empire on fear until one phone call brought him to his knees. The most dangerous man in the city abandoned everything the moment he heard her name. Lena Hart, the woman he had shattered years ago to keep her alive. Now she was dying in a hospital bed, and the ruthless crime lord who had never begged for anything was about to discover a truth that would destroy him. Stay until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The conference room at the Obsidian Tower smelled like expensive whiskey and fear. Adrian Moretti sat at the head of a black marble table, his fingers steepled beneath his chin as three men in tailored suits avoided his gaze. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled beneath them like a kingdom, and in many ways, it was his kingdom. Every shipment that moved through the docks, every backroom deal in the financial district, every whispered transaction in the shadows, it all flowed through Adrian's hands. He was 38 years old and had spent the last 15 building an empire that made other crime families look like street gangs. The Moretti name didn't inspire respect, it inspired terror. "Explain to me," Adrian said, his voice quiet and deadly, "how a shipment worth $3 million simply disappears." Vincent Calabrese, his logistics coordinator, shifted in his seat. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the room's carefully controlled temperature. "Mr. Moretti, we're investigating every—" "I didn't ask what you're doing. I asked how it happened." The silence that followed was suffocating. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. Men who shouted were insecure, desperate to be heard. Adrian Moretti spoke softly because everyone knew what happened to people who didn't listen. "It was an inside job," Marco Tassino finally said, his voice hoarse. "Had to be. The timing was too perfect." Adrian's dark eyes shifted to Marco, and the man visibly flinched. "Then find the insider. You have 48 hours. After that, I start assuming everyone in this room is complicit." Vincent opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat when Adrian's phone buzzed against the marble table. The sound was innocuous, a simple vibration, but something about it made the room feel colder. Adrian never took calls during meetings. Everyone knew that. His phone was always on silent, always ignored until business was concluded. It was one of his many rules, the kind of discipline that had kept him alive and in power for over a decade. But when he glanced at the screen and saw the name of the caller, something in his expression changed. The three men at the table couldn't quite identify what they saw in their boss's face in that moment. It wasn't fear. Adrian Moretti didn't know how to be afraid. It wasn't anger either, though they'd seen plenty of that. It was something else, something almost human, and that terrified them more than any threat. "Get out," Adrian said. "Sir?" Vincent stammered. "All of you, now." They didn't ask questions. They simply stood, gathered their tablets and phones, and fled the room like men escaping a building on fire. The heavy door clicked shut behind them, and Adrian was alone. He stared at the phone for another 3 seconds, watching it buzz insistently against the polished surface. The caller ID read, "St. Catherine's Hospital." His hand was steady when he answered, but his voice wasn't quite as controlled as usual. "This is Moretti." "Mr. Moretti, this is Nurse Sarah Chen from St. Catherine's Emergency Department." The woman's voice was professional but urgent. "I'm calling about Lena Hart. She listed you as her emergency contact." The name hit him like a bullet to the chest. Lena Hart. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 3 years, but it had haunted him every single day since. Lena, with her warm brown eyes and defiant smile. Lena, who had looked at him like he was a man instead of a monster. Lena, whose heart he had deliberately broken to save her life. What happened? The question came out harder than he intended. "She was brought in 40 minutes ago. She collapsed at her apartment. Mr. Moretti, she's in critical condition. The doctors are doing everything they can, but—" The nurse hesitated. "You should come. If you want to see her, you should come now." Adrian was already standing. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. He ended the call and crossed the room in long, purposeful strides. His driver would be waiting downstairs. The man was always waiting, always ready. But 15 minutes suddenly felt like an eternity. His hand was on the door handle when his phone rang again. This time it was Rafael Costa, his second-in-command and the man currently overseeing operations in the Southern District. Adrian almost didn't answer. Almost. "What is it, Rafael?" "We have a problem with the Garcia family. They're pushing back on the territory agreement. Says they want to renegotiate terms or handle it." "Boss, I really think you should—" "I said handle it." Adrian's voice could have frozen hell. "I don't care how. Figure it out." He hung up before Raphael could respond and stormed out of the conference room. His footsteps echoed through the hallway as he made his way to the private elevator. The Obsidian Tower was his fortress, 43 stories of steel and glass that housed legitimate businesses on the upper floors and his real operations in the secured levels below. As the elevator descended, Adrian caught his reflection in the polished metal doors. He barely recognized the man staring back at him. The tailored Tom Ford suit, the perfectly styled dark hair touched with gray at the temples, the cold eyes that had watched men die without flinching. This was Adrian Moretti, the king of the underworld. This was the man who had clawed his way up from nothing, who had survived 3 assassination attempts and a war with the Bratva that had left bodies stacked like cordwood. But underneath all of that was someone else. Someone he had buried so deep he'd almost forgotten he existed. Someone who had once loved Lena Hart enough to destroy her to keep her safe. The elevator opened into the underground parking garage, and his driver Marcus straightened immediately. "Sir?" "St. Catherine's Hospital, now." Marcus knew better than to ask questions. The black Mercedes S-Class was already running, and they pulled out into the night within seconds. Adrian sat in the back seat, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. 3 years. 3 years since he'd pushed Lena away with words designed to cut as deep as possible. 3 years since he'd watched her walk out of his life, her eyes filled with tears and betrayal. 3 years since he'd convinced himself it was the right thing to do, the only thing to do. The Bratva had been circling then, looking for weaknesses, searching for pressure points they could exploit. And they'd found out about Lena. Dmitry Volkov himself had mentioned her name during a meeting, a casual comment about the pretty girl Moretti keeps in that apartment on 5th Street. It had been a message, a warning. They knew about her, and that meant she was already dead. So Adrian had done what he always did when facing an impossible situation. He'd made the hard choice. He'd told Lena that she meant nothing to him, that she'd been a distraction, an amusement. He'd watched her face crumble as he delivered each carefully crafted lie. He'd forced himself to stay cold and distant as she'd begged him to tell her the truth, to explain what had changed. And when she'd finally left, when the door had closed behind her for the last time, Adrian had destroyed his entire office. He'd put his fist through the wall, shattered the windows, overturned the desk. His knuckles had bled for days afterward, but Lena had been safe. The Bratva had lost interest once they realized she was no longer part of his life, and Adrian had buried whatever part of him had been capable of loving someone. The Mercedes cut through traffic with practiced efficiency. Marcus knew every shortcut in the city, every alley and side street that could shave 30 seconds off their travel time. But even so, 15 minutes felt like drowning. Adrian's phone buzzed with messages. Raphael again, probably furious about being dismissed. Vincent with updates about the missing shipment. A text from his attorney about a grand jury investigation that was getting too close to their operations. He ignored all of it. The hospital rose ahead of them, a sprawling complex of connected buildings bathed in harsh fluorescent light. Marcus pulled up to the emergency entrance, and Adrian was out of the car before it had fully stopped. "Wait here," he ordered. The emergency department was chaos. Ambulances in the bay, people shouting, machines beeping, the smell of antiseptic and blood. A security guard started to approach him, probably to tell him he couldn't park there, but something in Adrian's expression made the man think better of it. Adrian walked straight to the main desk where a tired-looking nurse was typing on a computer. "Lena Hart, where is she?" The nurse glanced up, clearly about to deliver some speech about visiting hours or proper procedures, but the words died on her lips when she saw his face. "Are you Mr. Moretti?" "Yes." "4th floor, room 412. Dr. Reeves is with her now. The elevator is—" Adrian was already moving. He didn't wait for the elevator, taking the stairs 2 at a time despite the 4-floor climb. His heart was pounding, not from exertion, but from something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Real, genuine fear that had nothing to do with bullets or betrayal, and everything to do with the possibility that he might be too late. The fourth floor was quieter than the emergency department, but the tension was still thick in the air. Room 412 was at the end of the hallway, and Adrian could see nurses moving quickly in and out, their faces tight with concentration. He was 10 feet from the door when a doctor stepped out. The man was in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of exhausted expression that came from too many hours and too many impossible decisions. "Mr. Moretti? How is she?" Dr. Reeves glanced back at the room, then guided Adrian a few steps away from the door. "She's stable for now, but her condition is extremely serious. She has severe preeclampsia, dangerously high blood pressure during pregnancy. Her organs are beginning to shut down." The world tilted sideways. "Pregnancy?" Adrian's voice sounded foreign to his own ears. Dr. Reeves studied him carefully. "You didn't know?" "I haven't seen her in 3 years." The doctor's expression shifted, some calculation happening behind his eyes. "Mr. Moretti, Ms. Hart is 37 weeks pregnant. The baby is in distress and her body is failing. We need to perform an emergency C-section immediately, but I have to be honest with you. The risks are significant for both of them." Adrian felt like he had been hit by a truck. Pregnant. Lena was pregnant. And if she was 37 weeks along, if his math was right. The baby was his. "Can I see her?" The question came out hoarse. "She's been asking for you," Dr. Reeves said quietly. "But, Mr. Moretti, we don't have much time. We need consent for the surgery, and we need it now. Whatever you need. Just save them." Adrian didn't recognize the desperation in his own voice. "Both of them. Do you understand? Whatever it takes." The doctor nodded and disappeared back into the room. Adrian stood frozen in the hallway, his mind racing through impossible calculations. 3 years ago, he'd pushed Lena away. 3 years ago, she'd left his apartment with tears streaming down her face. And 9 months after that, she would have given birth to his child. Which meant for almost 3 years, Lena had been raising their son or daughter alone. While Adrian had been building his empire, expanding his territory, crushing his enemies, she had been pregnant, alone, struggling. And he'd never known. The door to room 412 opened, and a nurse gestured to him. "She's awake. You have a few minutes." Adrian walked into the room on legs that didn't quite feel like his own. The space was small, dominated by medical equipment that beeped and hummed. IV lines ran from bags of clear fluid to Lena's arm. Monitors displayed numbers that meant nothing to Adrian but clearly worried the medical staff. And there, in the bed, was Lena. She looked so small. That was Adrian's first thought. Lena had always been petite, barely reaching his shoulder even in heels, but now she seemed almost fragile. Her face was pale, her dark hair damp with sweat, her lips cracked and dry. But her eyes, those warm brown eyes that had haunted his dreams, opened when he approached the bed. "Adrian," she whispered. He was beside her in 2 strides, his hand finding hers before he could think better of it. Her fingers were cold, trembling. I'm here, Lena." "You came." A weak smile touched her lips. "I wasn't sure you would." "Of course I came. Don't talk, just... I need to tell you something." Her grip tightened on his hand with surprising strength. "Before they take me to surgery, I need you to know. The baby is mine." It wasn't a question. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I tried to tell you. 3 years ago, after you ended things. I came back to your apartment the next day. I needed to tell you I was pregnant. But Raphael was there, and he said you'd left the city, that you didn't want to hear from me ever again." Adrian's blood turned to ice. "Raphael told you what?" "He said you knew I was pregnant and that you wanted nothing to do with the baby or me. He gave me money, a lot of money, and told me to disappear." A tear slid down her cheek. "I should have tried harder to reach you, but I believed him. After the things you said to me that night, I believed you didn't want us." The beeping of the monitors seemed to get louder. Adrian's mind was racing, fitting pieces together. Raphael had intercepted Lena. Raphael had lied to both of them. Raphael had kept Adrian's child a secret for 3 years. "Why did you put me as your emergency contact?" Adrian asked, his voice rough. "Because despite everything, despite all the lies and the pain, you're still his father." Lena's free hand moved to her swollen belly. "And if something happens to me, He'll need you. He'll need someone to protect him from. Nothing is going to happen to you, Adrian interrupted, but even he could hear the fear in his voice. Adrian, listen to me. Lena's eyes were urgent now. His name is going to be Lucas, I already decided. Lucas James Hart. And if I don't make it, you're going to make it. If I don't make it, she continued, her voice getting weaker, promise me you'll keep him safe. Not just from the obvious dangers, from your world, from the people who would use him against you. Promise me you'll keep him safe from becoming like... She stopped herself, but Adrian knew what she'd been about to say. Promise me you'll keep him safe from becoming like you. I promise, he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. I swear to you, Lena, I'll protect him. I'll protect both of you. Dr. Reeves appeared in the doorway. We need to go now. Wait! Lena's grip on Adrian's hand was desperate. There's a box in my apartment, under the bed, photos, letters, ultrasounds, everything about him, everything I wanted you to know. Promise me. If I don't, you're going to tell me yourself, Adrian said fiercely. You're going to be fine, and you're going to tell me every single detail about our son. Do you hear me, Lena? You're going to be fine. But her eyes were already closing, her strength fading. The nurses moved in efficiently, preparing to wheel her bed toward the operating room. Adrian had to let go of her hand, had to step back, had to watch helplessly as they took her away. Dr. Reeves paused at the door. The waiting room is down the hall. This could take several hours. We'll update you as soon as we can. Then Adrian was alone in the empty hospital room, surrounded by the ghosts of everything he'd lost and everything he'd never known he had. A son. He had a son. And the woman he'd loved enough to destroy was fighting for her life in an operating room because Adrian had been too much of a coward to fight for her 3 years ago. His phone buzzed. Raphael calling again. Adrian stared at the name on the screen, rage building in his chest like a wildfire. Raphael had lied. Raphael had kept his child from him. Raphael had... Not now. Adrian forced himself to breathe. He'd deal with Raphael later. Right now, all that mattered was Lena and the baby. Lucas. His son's name was Lucas. The waiting room was sterile and depressing, filled with uncomfortable chairs and outdated magazines. Adrian sat down, but he couldn't stay still. He stood, paced, sat down again. Time moved like molasses. An hour passed, then 2. No updates. No news. Just the horrible silence of waiting. Adrian's mind wouldn't stop racing. 3 years of his son's life gone. First steps, first words, first everything. He'd missed it all. And Lena had been alone, believing he'd abandoned them, believing he'd known about the pregnancy and simply didn't care. How many nights had she cried herself to sleep? How many times had she struggled, wondered how she'd make it work, cursed his name? And all of it because Raphael had lied. Adrian pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found Marcus's number. His driver answered on the first ring. Boss? I need you to do something for me. Adrian's voice was cold, controlled. Go to Lena Hart's apartment. The address should be in the old files from 3 years ago. There's a box under her bed. Bring it to the hospital. And Marcus, don't let anyone see you. Don't tell anyone where you're going or why. Consider it done. Adrian hung up and resumed his pacing. His empire was probably falling apart right now. Raphael was probably furious about being dismissed. The Garcia family was probably making moves, seeing an opening. The missing shipment still needed to be found. And Adrian didn't give a damn about any of it. The only thing that mattered was behind the operating room doors, fighting for survival. Another hour crawled by. Adrian had memorized every crack in the ceiling, every stain on the floor. His expensive suit was wrinkled from sitting and pacing. His perfectly styled hair was a mess from running his hands through it. He looked nothing like the feared crime boss who'd walked into St. Catherine's Hospital 3 hours ago. He looked like a man coming apart at the seams. When Dr. Reeves finally emerged from the operating room, Adrian was on his feet instantly. The doctor's surgical scrubs were stained with blood, his face drawn with exhaustion. Tell me, Adrian demanded. The baby is alive. A boy, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. His APGAR scores were low initially, but he's breathing on his own now. The neonatal team has him in the NICU for observation, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Relief flooded through Adrian so powerfully, he almost staggered. And Lena? Dr. Reeves' expression shifted, and Adrian's heart stopped. She's alive, the doctor said carefully. But she's not out of danger. She lost a significant amount of blood during the surgery. We've given her multiple transfusions, but her organs took a serious hit from the preeclampsia. The next 48 hours are critical. If she can stabilize, if her kidneys and liver start to recover. He trailed off, the unspoken possibilities hanging heavy in the air. Can I see them? The baby, yes. Ms. Hart is still in recovery. She'll be moved to the ICU once she's stable enough, but she's not conscious yet and won't be for several hours. Take me to my son. The words felt strange in Adrian's mouth. My son. He'd never imagined saying them, never allowed himself to think about children or family or anything beyond his empire. But now everything had changed. Dr. Reeves led him through a maze of hallways to the neonatal intensive care unit. They had to scrub in, put on gowns and masks. The NICU was quiet, except for the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle whoosh of ventilators. And there, in a small plastic bassinet under warming lights, was the smallest person Adrian had ever seen. Lucas. His son had a shock of dark hair, tiny fists clenched, eyes squeezed shut. His chest rose and fell in rapid bird-like breaths. Wires connected him to monitors, and a small oxygen line helped him breathe, but he was alive. He was real. Adrian stood frozen beside the bassinet, afraid to touch, afraid to breathe too hard. This tiny, perfect creature was half him, carried his blood, carried his name. You can touch him, a nurse said gently. Babies need human contact. Adrian's hand trembled as he reached into the bassinet. His finger found Lucas's palm, and the baby's tiny hand instinctively gripped it. The contact was electric, earth-shattering. For the first time in 15 years, Adrian Moretti felt tears burn behind his eyes. This was his son, his child. The most innocent thing in the world, completely helpless, completely dependent. And Adrian, a man who'd killed, stolen, destroyed, was responsible for protecting him. He's beautiful, Adrian whispered. He's a fighter, the nurse said, just like his mother. Adrian stayed there for an hour, maybe more, just watching Lucas sleep. He memorized every detail, the slope of his nose, the curve of his ears, the way his eyebrows furrowed like he was concentrating on something important. This was what mattered. Not territory or power or reputation. This tiny life, this perfect, innocent soul, this was everything. When a different doctor came to check on Lucas, Adrian reluctantly stepped away. I need to see Lena Hart. Is she in the ICU yet? Room 7, but she's still unconscious. She probably won't wake for hours. I don't care. I need to be there when she does. The ICU was even quieter than the NICU, a place of hushed beeping and dim lights. Lena was in a bed surrounded by machines, tubes running everywhere. Her face was still pale, her breathing assisted by oxygen, but she was alive. Adrian pulled a chair to her bedside and took her hand. It was warmer now than it had been before surgery, and that gave him hope. I'm sorry, he whispered into the darkness. For everything. For pushing you away. For the lies. For not being there. I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was hurt you. And you were alone, raising our son alone, because I was too much of a coward to... His voice broke. Adrian Moretti, the man who'd never shown weakness, who'd never let anyone see him vulnerable, was crying in a hospital room at 4 a.m. He's perfect, Lena. Lucas is perfect, and you're going to be okay. You have to be okay because he needs you. I need you, and I'm never leaving again. Do you hear me? Never. The only answer was the steady beep of her heart monitor. Adrian's phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. Messages piling up, emergencies demanding his attention. But he didn't even look. For the first time in his adult life, the Empire came second. Dawn was breaking outside the ICU windows when Marcus appeared, carrying a cardboard box. He set it carefully on the floor beside Adrian's chair. From her apartment, boss. Under the bed, just like you said. Thank you, Marcus. Go home. Get some rest. You need anything else? I'll call. When Marcus left, Adrian opened the box. Inside were treasures he'd never known existed. Ultrasound photos, dozens of them, showing the progression of Lucas's development. A journal filled with Lena's handwriting, documenting her pregnancy week by week. Photos of her with a growing belly, always alone, always trying to smile. There were letters, too, addressed to Adrian, never sent. In them, Lena poured out her heart, the fear, the loneliness, the anger, the hope. She wrote about feeling Lucas kick for the first time, about setting up a nursery in her tiny apartment, about wondering if she was strong enough to do this alone. Adrian read every word, and with each page his rage at Raphael grew, but so did his understanding of what Lena had endured. At the bottom of the box was a small blue blanket, hand-knitted, and a card that read, "For Lucas, from Mom, you are loved more than you will ever know." Adrian held that blanket and wept like he hadn't wept since he was a child himself. The sun was fully up when Dr. Reeves returned. Adrian looked up from the box of memories, his eyes red but dry now. "Her vitals are improving," the doctor said. "Slowly, but improving. Her kidneys are starting to function again. If this continues, she might wake up in the next few hours." "And she'll recover?" "Too early to say for certain, but she's fighting. That counts for a lot." When the doctor left, Adrian returned to Lena's bedside. He held her hand in the blue blanket, and he made promises to both of them, promises he intended to keep no matter what it cost him. Because Adrian Moretti had finally found something worth more than power. He'd found his family, and he would burn the entire world down before he let anyone take them from him. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ICU floor, but Adrian barely noticed. He'd been sitting in the same chair for 6 hours, Lena's hand still clasped in his, the blue blanket draped across his lap. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Raphael's face and imagined all the ways he would make the man pay. But that would come later. Right now, his world had narrowed to this room, this woman, and the tiny life fighting for survival 3 floors below. Lena's fingers twitched in his grip. Adrian's head snapped up, his exhaustion evaporating instantly. "Lena?" Her eyelids fluttered. Once, twice. Then slowly, painfully, they opened. "Adrian?" Her voice was barely a whisper, raw and broken. "I'm here." He leaned closer, his free hand gently brushing the hair from her forehead. "I'm right here." "Lucas?" The name came out as a desperate gasp. "The baby. He's alive. He's perfect. He's in the NICU, and he's breathing on his own. The doctors say he's a fighter." Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks, and Adrian wiped them away with trembling fingers. "I want to see him. I need to." "You will. As soon as you're strong enough, I promise. But right now you need to rest. You almost died, Lena. Your body needs time to heal." She tried to shake her head, but the movement made her wince. "What if something happens? What if I waited 3 years to tell you about him, and now I don't get to?" "Nothing is going to happen." Adrian's voice was fierce. "You're going to recover, and you're going to hold our son, and you're going to watch him grow up. Do you understand me?" Lena's eyes searched his face, looking for something. Truth, maybe. Or forgiveness. "I should have tried harder to reach you. When Raphael said you didn't want us, I should have known it was a lie. I should have." "Raphael lied to both of us." The words came out like broken glass. "He kept you from me. He kept Lucas from me. And he's going to answer for that." Something in Adrian's tone made Lena's eyes widen with fear. "Adrian, no. Don't do anything that will what? Make me a monster?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "Lena, I've been a monster for 15 years. The only time I wasn't was when I was with you, and I threw that away because I thought I was protecting you." "You were protecting me." Her grip on his hand tightened weakly. "The Bravo would have killed me if you hadn't pushed me away. I understand that now. I didn't then, but I do now." "You understand wrong." Adrian's jaw clenched. "I should have fought for you. I should have taken you somewhere safe, somewhere they could never reach. Instead, I broke your heart and sent you away pregnant and alone." "I wasn't completely alone." Lena's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I had Lucas. Even before he was born, I had him. And he saved me, Adrian. On the nights when I couldn't stop crying, when I was so angry, I wanted to scream, I'd feel him move inside me and remember that I had someone to live for." The image of Lana alone in some apartment, pregnant and heartbroken, made Adrian want to put his fist through the wall, but he forced himself to stay calm, to keep his voice gentle. Tell me about him. Tell me everything I missed. Adrian, you should rest. You look... I don't need rest. I need to know my son. Lena studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. He kicked constantly. From the moment I first felt him move at 18 weeks, he never stopped. The doctor said it meant he was healthy, but I think it just meant he was stubborn, like his father. Despite everything, Adrian felt his lips twitch. Stubborn, huh? Impossibly stubborn. I spent half my pregnancy craving things I couldn't afford, and the other half so exhausted I could barely stand. But every time I felt him kick, it was worth it. Her eyes grew distant, remembering. I used to talk to him, tell him stories about his father, not the truth, but the man I wished you could have been, the man I thought you were before. Before I destroyed everything. Before you saved my life, Lena corrected softly. I was angry for a long time. But then I had Lucas, and I understood. You did what you thought you had to do, just like I did what I had to do, raise our son alone. A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Miss Hart, it's good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Tired, sore, like I got hit by a truck. That's normal after what you went through. Your vitals are looking better, though. If you continue to improve, we might be able to move you to a regular room by tomorrow. The nurse checked the IV lines, made notes on her chart. And Mr. Moretti, you need to eat something. You've been here all night. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like death. Lena's voice was weak but firm. Go get coffee, food, something. I'm not going anywhere. Adrian wanted to argue, but the look in Lena's eyes stopped him. She was right. He'd been running on adrenaline for hours, and eventually his body would shut down whether he wanted it to or not. 30 minutes, he said. That's all. Take an hour. Sleep if you can. I can't sleep knowing you're here and Lucas is 3 floors away. Lena's expression softened. Then go see him. Sit with him. Tell him about his father, the real you, not the monster you think you are. Adrian leaned down and pressed a kiss to her forehead. I'll be back soon. The cafeteria was nearly empty at this hour, just a handful of exhausted doctors and worried family members scattered across the space. Adrian bought coffee he didn't taste and a sandwich he couldn't eat. His mind was spinning, calculating, planning. Raphael had betrayed him. The man he'd trusted to run half his operations had lied to his face for 3 years, had kept Adrian's own child secret, had paid off Lena and sent her away like she was some inconvenient problem to be solved. The question was why? What did Raphael have to gain from keeping Lucas secret? Adrian's phone buzzed for the 100th time. He finally looked at it and saw 17 missed calls from Raphael, 12 from Vincent, and a stream of increasingly urgent text messages. The last one, from Raphael, sent 10 minutes ago. Boss, we need to talk. Now. The Garcia situation is escalating. They hit one of our warehouses. We're bleeding money and men. Where the hell are you? Adrian stared at the message for a long moment, then typed a single response. Handle it yourself. I'm busy. The reply came instantly. Busy with what? This is our empire falling apart. Adrian's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He could feel the old instincts rising, the need to control, to dominate, to crush anyone who challenged him. The empire was everything he'd built, everything he'd sacrificed for. But then he thought of Lucas's tiny hand gripping his finger, of Lana's broken voice asking about their son, of 3 years he'd never get back. He typed, "The empire doesn't matter right now." His phone immediately rang, Raphael calling. Adrian declined it and turned the phone off entirely. The NICU was quiet when he returned. Lucas was still asleep in his bassinet, his small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The oxygen line was still in place, but the nurse said his levels were improving. Adrian sat in the rocking chair beside the bassinet and just watched. How could something so small, so fragile, have the power to completely destroy and rebuild a man in the span of a few hours? You're going to have a good life, Adrian whispered. Better than mine, better than I ever dreamed of having. No violence, no fear, no empire built on blood, just normalcy, safety, love. Lucas's eyes opened at the sound of his voice. They were unfocused, barely able to see, but they turned toward Adrian like they knew he was there. Your mother is strong, Adrian continued, keeping his voice low and gentle. Stronger than me. She survived 3 years alone because she had you to fight for, and now she's fighting to stay alive because she wants to watch you grow up. So you need to fight too, okay? You need to keep breathing, keep getting stronger, because both of us need you. A shadow fell across the bassinet. Adrian looked up to find Dr. Reeves standing there, his expression unreadable. Mr. Moretti, can we talk? Outside? Adrian's stomach dropped. Is it Lena? She's stable. This is about something else. They stepped into the hallway, and Dr. Reeves pulled him to a quiet corner. I need to be direct with you. Your son is doing well, all things considered, but he's going to need a lot of care over the next few weeks, and Ms. Hart's recovery is going to be long and difficult. She'll need help, support, probably months of physical therapy. I'll make sure she has whatever she needs. Mr. Moretti, I don't know what you do for a living, and frankly, I don't want to know, but I've been a doctor long enough to recognize certain types, and I need you to understand something. Dr. Reeves's eyes were hard. That woman in the ICU is one of the bravest people I've ever met. She nearly died bringing your son into the world. And if you're planning to waltz back into her life just to hurt her again or drag her into whatever dangerous situation you're involved in, I'm going to have a problem with that. Adrian could have been offended, could have responded with threats or intimidation. Instead, he just nodded. You're right to be concerned. And I can't promise that my world won't touch them. I've made too many enemies, burned too many bridges. But I can promise that I will do everything in my power to keep them safe, even if that means walking away again. Walking away didn't work the first time. No, Adrian agreed quietly. It didn't. Dr. Reeves studied him for another moment, then nodded. Ms. Hart is asking for you, and before you go back to her, you should know she's going to need a blood transfusion. Her levels dropped during the night. We're typing and matching now, but if you're willing to donate, yes, whatever she needs. Come with me. An hour later, Adrian was in a chair with a needle in his arm, watching his blood flow through a tube into a collection bag. It was strange, almost poetic, giving Lena his blood after she'd given him a son. A small repayment for everything she'd endured. When he returned to her room, Lena was sitting up slightly, her color a bit better. They told me you donated blood. It's the least I could do. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Adrian sat in his usual chair, taking her hand again. It was becoming a habit, this connection. Lena, I need to tell you something about Raphael. Her expression tightened. What about him? He's been running operations for me for 5 years. He's my second in command, the man I trusted more than anyone else in the organization. And he's the one who lied to you, who told you I didn't want you or Lucas. I know, you told me that already. What I didn't tell you is that I think he did it deliberately, not just to protect you from the Bratva, but to keep me isolated, to make sure I stayed focused on the Empire instead of building a life outside of it. Lena frowned. Why would he do that? Control? Power? Maybe he thought if I had something to lose, I'd become weak. Or maybe he just wanted to make sure my loyalty stayed with the organization instead of with the family. Adrian's jaw clenched. Either way, he kept my son from me for 3 years, and that's not something I can forgive. What are you going to do? The question hung in the air between them. Adrian knew what Lena was really asking. Are you going to kill him? I don't know yet, he admitted. Part of me wants to put a bullet in his head, but another part of me wonders if that's just the old Adrian talking, the one who solved every problem with violence. And what does the new Adrian want? Adrian looked at their joined hands, then back at Lena's face. The new Adrian wants to be the kind of man who can hold his son without feeling like he's contaminating something pure. The kind of man who deserves a woman like you. But I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if I can just walk away from 15 years of... I'm not asking you to be perfect, Lena interrupted gently. I'm asking you to be present, to be here, with us, instead of out there building an empire that will eventually destroy you. It's not that simple. I have enemies, Lena. The Garcia family is already pushing back, testing boundaries. If they sense weakness, if they think I'm distracted, then let them think that. Let Raphael handle it. Let someone else wear the crown for a while. Her eyes were intense despite her exhaustion. Because if you go back to that life, If you choose the empire over us, you're going to lose us anyway. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. And this time, it won't be because you're trying to protect us. It will be because you chose power over love." The words hit harder than any bullet Adrian had ever taken, because she was right. He'd spent 15 years building something that could be destroyed in a day. But Lena and Lucas, they were real, permanent, worth protecting. "I need time," he said finally. "Time to figure out how to keep you safe while I extract myself from this life. The organization doesn't just let people walk away, Lena. I've made that rule myself. Once you're in until you're dead. Then change the rules. It's not that simple, I know. You keep saying that. But Adrian, nothing about this situation is simple. We have a son who needs both of his parents alive and present. We have a chance to be a family, an actual family, not some tragic love story that ends with you in prison or dead in an alley. Don't waste that chance because you're too afraid to walk away from something that's already destroying you." Before Adrian could respond, his phone, which he'd turned back on out of habit, buzzed with an incoming call. "Marcus. I need to take this," Adrian said, releasing Lena's hand reluctantly. He stepped into the hallway. "What is it?" "Boss, we've got a problem. Raphael showed up at the hospital 10 minutes ago. He's in the lobby asking for you. Security won't let him up, but he's not leaving. Says it's urgent." Adrian's blood ran cold. "How did he know I was here?" "No idea. But boss, he's got 3 men with him. They're armed. I can see the bulges under their jackets." "Where are you?" "Parking garage. I've got eyes on the main entrance. You want me to intercept?" Adrian's mind raced. Raphael was here, armed, with backup. Either he'd figured out about Lucas and Lena, or something had happened with the organization that required Adrian's immediate attention. Either way, having him in the hospital was a threat. "Stay where you are," Adrian ordered. "Don't engage unless he tries to come upstairs. I'm coming down." He ended the call and returned to Lena's room. She took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" "Raphael is here. Downstairs in the lobby." Fear flashed across her face. "Does he know about Lucas?" "I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to talk to him. Send him away. You stay here. Keep the door locked. If anything happens, Adrian, don't. Don't go down there. If he brought men, if he's armed, I'll be fine. This is what I do, remember? I've been handling men like Raphael my entire adult life." "That was before you had something to lose." Lena's voice cracked. "Please, just call security, have them remove him. Don't put yourself in danger. If I don't face him now, he'll just keep coming back. Better to deal with this on my terms." Adrian leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I promise I'll be careful, and I promise I'll come back." The walk to the elevator felt like a march to execution. Adrian's mind was already 3 steps ahead, calculating angles and possibilities. Raphael wouldn't try anything violent in a hospital. Too many witnesses, too much security. This was likely just a power play, a reminder that Adrian couldn't just disappear without consequences. But if Raphael had discovered the truth about Lucas, if he knew about the baby, then all bets were off. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, and Adrian immediately spotted Raphael across the lobby. He was standing near the information desk with 3 men Adrian recognized: Lorenzo, Marcus V, and Tommy the Knife Castellano. All of them seasoned enforcers. All of them loyal to Raphael. Raphael's face lit up when he saw Adrian approach. "Boss, finally! I've been trying to reach you for hours. What the hell is going on?" Adrian kept his expression neutral, his body language calm. "I told you to handle the Garcia situation yourself." "Handle it?" "Adrian, they burned down our warehouse in the Southern District. $500,000 in product gone. They're saying it's retaliation for the Sanchez hit last month. We need to respond, and we need to do it now, or they're going to think we're weak." "Then respond. You're second in command. Make a decision." Raphael's smile faltered. "I need your approval for something this big. We're talking about going to war with the Garcia family. That's not a call I can make alone. You made plenty of calls alone when you paid off Lena Hart and told her I didn't want my own son." The words came out cold and lethal. Raphael's face went white, and the 3 enforcers shifted uncomfortably. So they didn't know. Raphael had kept that secret from everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about," Raphael said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, You do. 3 years ago, when I pushed Lena away to protect her from the Bratva, she came back the next day to tell me she was pregnant. But you intercepted her. You told her I knew about the baby and wanted nothing to do with it. You gave her money and sent her away. Raphael's jaw clenched. I did what was necessary. You were spiraling, Adrian. You just ended things with her. You were drinking too much, making sloppy decisions. The last thing you needed was some girl showing up pregnant, demanding money and attention. So yes, I handled it. I did what you were too weak to do. You kept my son from me. I kept you focused. Raphael's voice rose. And it worked, didn't it? You built this empire into something unstoppable. You crushed the Bratva, took over the docks, expanded into 3 new territories. You became the most feared man in this city. And you did all of that because you didn't have distractions. Because I made sure you stayed focused on what mattered. Adrian took a step closer, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. My son mattered. The woman I loved mattered, and you took them from me. I saved you from yourself. Raphael's eyes were hard now, defiant. You want to know the truth? I'm glad I did it, because if you'd known about the kid, you would have gone soft. You would have tried to play house, tried to be some kind of father. And eventually our enemies would have used that against you. They would have killed the girl and the baby, and you would have ended up dead or destroyed. So, yes, I lied. And I'd do it again. The lobby had gone silent. The 3 enforcers were watching the exchange with growing unease, their hands drifting toward their concealed weapons. Leave, Adrian said quietly. Take your men and leave. Don't come back to this hospital. Don't try to contact me. I'll deal with you later. Deal with me? Raphael laughed, but there was no humor in it. Adrian, you don't get it. I didn't come here to apologize or ask permission. I came here to tell you that the organization has already made its decision. You've been gone for almost 24 hours. You turned off your phone, ignored every call, abandoned your responsibilities. The other families are already circling, sensing weakness. And the men, our men, they're starting to ask questions. Let them ask. They're asking if you're still fit to lead. Raphael's eyes glittered with something dangerous. And I'm starting to wonder the same thing. A real leader doesn't disappear in the middle of a crisis. A real leader doesn't put his personal life above the empire. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come with me right now. You're going to address the Garcia situation. And you're going to show everyone that you're still the Adrian Moretti who built this organization. Or what? Raphael smiled. Or I'll have to assume you're no longer capable of leading, and the organization will find someone who is. The threat was clear. This wasn't just about the Garcia family or a burned warehouse. This was a coup. Raphael had been waiting for this moment, planning for it, and Adrian's disappearance had given him the perfect opening. You want my crown? Adrian asked softly. Take it. I don't want it anymore. Raphael's eyes widened in shock. What? You heard me. The empire is yours. The territory, the operations, the headaches, all of it. I'm done. You're not serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Adrian's voice was steady, certain. I have a son upstairs fighting for his life. I have a woman I love recovering from surgery that almost killed her. And I have a chance, maybe my only chance, to be something other than a monster. So yes, Raphael, you can have the empire. Just stay away from my family. For a moment, Raphael looked genuinely confused. Then his expression hardened. It doesn't work that way, Adrian. You know the rules. No one just walks away, especially not you. You've made too many enemies, know too many secrets. If you're not with us, you're a liability. Then I'll disappear, take Lena and Lucas somewhere no one can find us. Start over. With what? You think you can just live a normal life after everything you've done? You think your enemies will just forget about you? Raphael shook his head. There's only one way out of this life, Adrian, and we both know what that is. The 3 enforcers moved almost imperceptibly, forming a loose triangle around Adrian. Their hands were still near their weapons, their eyes watchful. Adrian had faced death before, had stared down the barrel of a gun more times than he could count. But this was different. This time, he had something to live for. If you kill me, Adrian said calmly, you'll start a war you can't win. I have loyal men, Raphael, men who would burn this city down to avenge me, Men who would never accept you as their leader if you murdered me in a hospital lobby. Who says I'm going to kill you here? Raphael's smile was cold. I'm just going to have a conversation with you, outside, in private. And if something unfortunate happens during that conversation, well, accidents happen in our line of work. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then I'll make sure everyone knows you're weak, that you abandoned the empire for some girl and her bastard kid. By tomorrow morning, every family in the city will be moving against us. And when the blood starts flowing, when our people start dying because their leader was too much of a coward to do his job, that will be on you. Adrian felt the old rage rising, the instinct to fight, to dominate, to crush anyone who challenged him. But underneath that was something new, fear. Not for himself, but for Lena and Lucas upstairs, vulnerable and unprotected. You have 24 hours, Adrian said finally. 24 hours to handle the Garcia situation, to shore up our defenses, to make sure our people are safe. After that, we meet at the Obsidian Tower, just you and me, and we settle this like men. Settle what? Whether you get to retire with your little family while the rest of us clean up your mess? Settle the terms of my departure. I'll give you everything, the contacts, the accounts, the operations. I'll make it official, transfer power legitimately, so no one can question your authority. But in exchange, you leave my family alone. Forever. No threats, no surveillance, no using them to control me. They disappear from your world completely. Raphael considered this, his eyes narrowing. And if I say no, then we go to war, right here, right now. And one of us doesn't walk out of this hospital alive. The tension in the lobby was suffocating. The three enforcers were poised to draw their weapons. Security guards at the main desk had noticed the confrontation and were reaching for their radios. Civilians were starting to back away, sensing danger. Finally, Raphael nodded. 24 hours. Obsidian Tower, top floor. Come alone and we'll talk. But Adrian? His smile was sharp as a knife. If you try to run, if you take that girl and disappear before we meet, I'll hunt you down. I'll find you. And I'll make sure you watch while I destroy everything you love before I put a bullet in your head. Then he turned and walked away, his three enforcers following like shadows. Adrian stood in the lobby for a long moment, his heart pounding, his hands trembling with suppressed rage and fear. He'd just negotiated for his life, for his family's life, with a man he'd once considered a friend. And he had 24 hours to figure out how to keep everyone he loved alive. When Adrian returned to Lena's room, she took one look at his face and knew the conversation hadn't gone well. What did he say? Her voice was tight with fear. Adrian sat heavily in the chair beside her bed, running both hands through his hair. For a moment he didn't speak, just stared at the floor like he was trying to arrange scattered pieces of a broken puzzle. He wants me to meet him tomorrow, at the Obsidian Tower, just the two of us. That's a trap. Probably. Then you can't go. Lena struggled to sit up straighter, wincing at the pain. Adrian, if you walk into that building alone, he'll kill you. You know that. If I don't go, he'll come after you and Lucas. He made that very clear. Adrian finally looked at her, and the exhaustion in his eyes broke her heart. I told him I was done, that he could have the empire, all of it. I just wanted him to leave us alone. And? He said no one walks away. That I'm either with the organization or I'm a liability that needs to be eliminated. Adrian's laugh was bitter. 15 years I spent building that world, and now it's a prison I can't escape. Lena reached for his hand, her grip weak but determined. Then we run, tonight. We take Lucas as soon as the doctors say he's stable enough to move, and we disappear. You must have money hidden somewhere, resources Raphael doesn't know about. We can go somewhere far away, somewhere he'd never think to look. He'll find us eventually. Raphael is smart, patient, and he has unlimited resources. And even if he didn't, there are a dozen other people who'd love to see me dead. Former rivals, families I've wronged, men who want revenge. Adrian shook his head. Running just delays the inevitable. Sooner or later, someone will track us down. And when they do, you and Lucas will be caught in the crossfire. So what are you saying? That you're just going to accept this? Walk into his trap and let him kill you? I'm saying I need to think. I have 24 hours to figure out how to protect you both. And I can't do that if I'm panicking. He squeezed her hand gently. How are you feeling? The truth. Lena wanted to argue, to keep pushing, but she could see the wall going up behind Adrian's eyes. The crime lord reasserting control, calculating odds and strategies. So she answered his question instead. Like I got hit by a train, everything hurts. The doctors say I'm improving, but it doesn't feel that way. What about Lucas? Have they given you any updates? A nurse came by an hour ago. She said he's holding steady. His oxygen levels are good. He's feeding well. They think we might be able to try skin-to-skin contact tomorrow, if I'm strong enough. Tears filled her eyes. I haven't even held him yet, Adrian. My own son, and I haven't held him. You will, I promise. Adrian stood and pressed a kiss to her forehead. I need to make some calls, figure out who I can still trust, but I'll be right outside if you need me. Adrian, wait. She caught his hand before he could pull away. Whatever you're planning, whatever you decide to do, don't shut me out. I've spent 3 years alone making every decision by myself. I can't go through that again. We're in this together now, all three of us. He nodded, but Lena wasn't sure he really heard her. His mind was already somewhere else, running through scenarios and contingencies. The hallway outside the ICU was quiet. Adrian pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts, weighing his options. Most of the men in his organization were loyal to the structure, not to him personally. If Raphael declared himself the new leader, they'd follow without question. But there were a few, a handful, who might still stand with him. He dialed Marcus first. Boss? Where are you? Still in the parking garage. I saw Raphael leave with his crew about 20 minutes ago. They looked pissed. They were. Marcus, I need you to do something for me, and I need you to be completely honest about whether you can do it. Because if you say yes and then change your mind later, people I love are going to die. There was a long pause. What do you need? I'm meeting Raphael tomorrow at the Obsidian Tower. He says it's to negotiate my exit from the organization, but we both know it's a setup. I need eyes and ears inside that building. I need to know what he's planning, who he's bringing, what kind of trap he's setting. You want me to spy on Raphael? Yes. If he catches me, he'll kill me. You know that. I know. That's why I'm asking if you can do it, not telling you to do it. If the answer is no, I understand. I'll find another way. Marcus was quiet for so long, Adrian thought the call had disconnected. Then, I've worked for you for 8 years, boss. 8 years, and you've never lied to me. Never thrown me under the bus to save yourself. Never treated me like I was disposable. Raphael? He'd sell me out in a heartbeat if it served his purposes. So yeah, I can do this. I'll get you the information you need. Relief flooded through Adrian. Thank you. And Marcus? After tomorrow, regardless of how this goes, you need to disappear for a while. Take the emergency fund from the safety deposit box in my office. The one only you and I know about. Get out of the city, lie low until things settle. What about you? Don't worry about me. Just promise me you'll get out. I promise. But boss, don't go into that meeting alone. Whatever Raphael is planning, you need backup. I'll think about it. Adrian ended the call and immediately dialed another number. This one rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. Moretti, didn't expect to hear from you. Hello, Vincent. I need a favor. Vincent Calabrese had been with the organization almost as long as Adrian. He was older, more cautious, less prone to the ambition that drove men like Raphael. He valued stability over power. What kind of favor? Vincent's tone was wary. Information. Off the record. I need to know if Raphael has been making moves, talking to the other families, making promises, building alliances. Why would he do that? Because he thinks I'm weak, that I've lost my edge, and he wants to take my place. Vincent swore softly. I had a feeling something was off. He's been holding a lot of private meetings lately, bringing in people I don't recognize. I figured it was related to the Garcia situation, but now... He trailed off. What happened, Adrian? Why did you disappear yesterday? Adrian made a split-second decision to tell the truth. I have a son, 3 years old. I just found out about him yesterday. His mother nearly died in childbirth, and the baby is in the NICU fighting for his life. That's where I've been. That's why I left. The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Vincent said, A son. You have a son. Yes. And Raphael knew about this? He's the one who kept it from me. Paid off the mother, told her I didn't want them. He's been lying to my face for 3 years. That son of a bitch. Vincent's anger was palpable even through the phone. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I need to know who I can count on. If it comes down to choosing sides tomorrow, me or Raphael, where would you stand? You're asking me to betray the second in command. I'm asking you to stand with the man you've worked beside for a decade. The man who's never lied to you, never used you, never treated you as anything less than a valued partner. Vincent exhaled slowly. You really planning to walk away? From all of this? Yes, I want out. I want to give my son a life that doesn't involve looking over his shoulder every day, wondering if today is the day his father's enemies come for him. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Vincent was quiet for another moment. All right, I'll see what I can find out. But Adrian, be careful. Raphael has been planning something for a long time. I think he's been waiting for an opportunity like this. And if he's willing to move against you, he's already made sure he has the support to do it. I know. That's why I need to know who's with him and who's still neutral. I'll call you back within 12 hours. And Moretti? For what it's worth, I hope you make it out of this. The organization is going to be a bloodbath under Raphael's leadership. He doesn't have your restraint. Adrian ended the call and leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. He was building a picture now, piece by piece. Raphael had been planning this coup for months, maybe years. He'd been consolidating power, building alliances, waiting for Adrian to show weakness. And the moment Adrian had disappeared to be with Lena and Lucas, Raphael had seized his opportunity. The question was whether Adrian could outmaneuver him with less than 24 hours to prepare. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Moretti, this is Dr. Reeves. Ms. Hart's blood work came back. Her kidney function is improving faster than expected. If she continues this trajectory, we may be able to move her to a regular room by morning. Thought you'd want to know. It was the first good news Adrian had received in hours. He allowed himself 30 seconds to feel relief before his tactical mind kicked back in. If Lena was moved to a regular room, she'd be more vulnerable. The ICU had controlled access, cameras, security protocols. A regular room had visitors coming and going, less monitoring, more opportunities for someone to slip in unnoticed. Adrian fired off a quick response. Can you keep her in the ICU for another day? I'll cover any additional costs. I'd feel more comfortable with the extra security. The reply came quickly. That's not standard protocol, but given the circumstances, I can justify it for medical monitoring. Consider it done. Adrian returned to Lena's room and found her dozing fitfully. He sat in the chair beside her bed and watched her sleep, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her skin. If tomorrow went wrong, this might be one of his last chances to see her. The thought made his chest ache in a way he hadn't felt since he was a child. Adrian Moretti had spent 15 years teaching himself not to feel, not to attach, not to love. And in less than 24 hours, Lena and Lucas had shattered every wall he'd built. Lena's eyes fluttered open. You're staring. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't really sleeping, just resting my eyes. She shifted slightly, grimacing. Did you make your calls? Yes, I have 2 people gathering information. By morning, I should know what I'm walking into. And then what? Then I make a choice. Either I give Raphael what he wants and hope he keeps his word about leaving you alone, or I fight back and risk starting a war that could get all of us killed. Lena reached for his hand. There has to be another option. If there is, I haven't thought of it yet. What if you went to the police, turned evidence, made a deal? They'd protect us in exchange for testimony against the organization. Adrian shook his head. The kind of protection the police can offer isn't enough. Not against Raphael, not against the people he could hire. We'd spend the rest of our lives in witness protection, always looking over our shoulders, never able to live normally. And even then, there are no guarantees. So we're trapped. I'm trapped. You and Lucas don't have to be. Adrian's voice was firm. I've been thinking about this. If something happens to me tomorrow, there's money in several accounts that only I can access. I've written down the details, the passwords, everything. It's enough for you to take Lucas and start over somewhere safe, somewhere Raphael will never find you. Adrian, stop. You're talking like you're already dead. I'm talking like a man who understands the odds. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket and pressed it into her hand. This is everything you need. Account numbers, access codes, the name of an attorney who can help you navigate the legal issues. If I don't come back from that meeting, you take this and you run. You don't wait. You don't hesitate. You just go. Lena stared at the paper like it was a snake. I don't want your blood money. It's not about what you want. It's about survival. It's about making sure our son has a chance at a real life. Adrian's voice cracked. Please, Lena, promise me. If I don't make it, you'll use this to protect Lucas. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. This isn't fair. I just got you back. We just became a family. It's not fair that you might be taken away before we even have a chance. Nothing about this is fair, but it's the reality we're dealing with. Adrian wiped her tears away gently. I'm going to do everything I can to come back to you, to both of you. But if I can't, I need to know you'll be okay. We won't be okay without you. You will. You're strong, Lena. You survived 3 years alone. You can survive whatever comes next. She clutched the paper to her chest and closed her eyes. I hate this. I hate all of this. So do I. They sat in silence for a long time, just holding hands in the dim light of the hospital room. Outside the window, the city was alive with lights and movement, completely unaware that in this small space, a family was being torn apart before it even had a chance to fully form. Around midnight, a nurse came to check Lena's vitals. She noted the improvements with satisfaction and adjusted the IV drip. You're doing remarkably well, Ms. Hart. At this rate, you might be able to see your son tomorrow. Maybe even hold him if Dr. Reeves approves it. Really? The hope in Lena's voice was heartbreaking. Really? Skin-to-skin contact is important for premature babies. It helps regulate their temperature, their heart rate, everything. And I think it would do you both some good. After the nurse left, Lena turned to Adrian with renewed determination in her eyes. I want to see him tonight. Lucas. I want to see him before tomorrow, before you go to that meeting. Lena, you can barely sit up. How are you going to... I don't care. Get me a wheelchair, carry me if you have to, but I need to see my son. Our son. I need to know he's real, that he's fighting, that there's something worth all of this. Adrian should have said no, should have insisted she rest, follow the doctor's orders, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She was right. They needed this. All three of them needed to be together, even if just for a moment, before the world came crashing down. He found a nurse and explained the situation. The woman was hesitant at first, citing regulations and medical protocols. But something in Adrian's expression, maybe the desperation, maybe the grief, made her relent. 15 minutes, she said. And if she shows any signs of distress, we bring her right back. They got Lena into a wheelchair with agonizing slowness. Every movement caused her pain, but she bit her lip and pushed through it. Adrian wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and wheeled her carefully toward the elevator. The NICU was even quieter at night, just the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle whoosh of ventilators. The night nurse raised an eyebrow when she saw them approaching, but didn't object. Room 3, she said simply. Wash your hands first. Adrian pushed the wheelchair to Lucas's bedside and locked the wheels. The baby was sleeping, his tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. He'd been moved from the warming bed to a regular bassinet, which the nurse said was a good sign. He was regulating his own temperature better. Lena stared at her son for a long moment, her hand covering her mouth. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but these were different from before. These were tears of wonder, of love, of overwhelming emotion. He's so small, she whispered. He's perfect, Adrian corrected. Can I touch him? Of course. He's your son. Lena reached into the bassinet with trembling hands. Her fingers brushed Lucas's cheek, and the baby stirred slightly, his mouth forming a small O. The touch was electric, a connection that transcended words or explanations. Hi, baby, Lena breathed. Hi, Lucas. It's Mommy. I'm sorry I couldn't be there when you were born. I'm sorry I was so sick, but I'm here now. I'm here, and I love you so much. Lucas's hand moved, tiny fingers wrapping instinctively around Lena's pinky. The gesture was so small, so simple, but it shattered something in both Adrian and Lena. Adrian crouched beside the wheelchair so he was level with them both. His hand covered Lena's, and together they formed a bridge over their son. "We're your parents," Adrian said softly to Lucas, "and we're going to protect you. No matter what happens, no matter what we have to sacrifice, you're going to be safe. You're going to have the life we never had, full of love and peace and possibility. I promise you that." "Adrian," Lena whispered, "look at him. Really look at him." Adrian did. He studied his son's face in the dim light, cataloging every detail. Lucas had Lena's nose and mouth, but Adrian's dark hair and the shape of his eyes. He was a perfect combination of both of them, a physical manifestation of everything they'd been and everything they could be. "He looks like you," Lena said. "He looks like us." They stayed like that for the full 15 minutes, just the three of them existing in a bubble of fragile peace. Adrian tried to memorize everything, the weight of Lena's hand in his, the warmth of Lucas's skin, the sound of his son's breathing. If tomorrow went wrong, these memories would have to last forever. When the nurse finally came to tell them time was up, Adrian wheeled Lena back to her room in the ICU. She was exhausted, her face pale with pain and fatigue, but there was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Thank you," she said as he helped her back into bed, "for letting me see him." "You don't have to thank me. He's your son." "Our son." She caught his hand before he could pull away. "Adrian, promise me something else. Promise me that no matter what happens tomorrow, you won't forget what you saw tonight. Don't forget that you have a family worth fighting for, worth living for." "I won't forget." "And promise me you won't go into that meeting planning to die. Don't be a martyr. Be a survivor. Be the man who comes home to his family." Adrian wanted to make that promise, wanted to believe it was possible. But he'd spent too many years in the underworld to have illusions about the odds he was facing. Still, for Lena, he lied. "I promise. I'll come back." She searched his face, looking for the truth beneath the words. Whatever she saw made her eyes fill with tears again, but she didn't call him on the lie. She just pulled him down for a kiss. Soft and desperate and filled with all the things they didn't have time to say. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Lena. I should have said it 3 years ago. I should have fought for you instead of pushing you away. But I'm saying it now. I love you." "I love you too. I never stopped." He stayed with her until she fell asleep, her hand still holding his. Then he carefully extracted himself and stepped into the hallway. His phone showed it was nearly 2 in the morning. In less than 12 hours, he'd be walking into the Obsidian Tower to face Raphael. Marcus called at 3. "I got what you needed, boss. Raphael is planning to meet you in the penthouse conference room, the one with the private elevator. He'll have at least 6 men waiting, armed, positioned around the room. He's telling people it's a security precaution, but we both know what it really is. An execution chamber." "Yeah, and boss? He's been making calls. To the Garcia family, the Volkov brothers, even the Colombians. He's promising them all a piece of your territory once you're gone. He's not just planning to kill you, he's planning to carve up your empire like a turkey at Thanksgiving." Adrian felt ice settle in his veins. "What about our people? Who's standing with him?" "Most of them. He's been generous with promises. Higher cuts, better territories, more autonomy. The guys who are loyal to you personally, like Vincent and Tommy, they're trying to stay neutral. But if you walk into that room tomorrow, you'll be outnumbered at least 10 to 1. "Understood. Thank you, Marcus. Now get out of the city, like I told you." "Boss, wait, there might be another way." "I'm listening." "What if you don't show up? What if you just take your family and disappear tonight? Raphael will be furious, but he'll also be stuck trying to explain to everyone why his big power play fell apart. It might buy you enough time to get somewhere safe." Adrian had considered this option already. "Raphael knows about Lena and Lucas now. If I run, he'll use them to draw me out. And even if I could get them out of the hospital without being noticed, where would we go? Every airport, every border crossing, Raphael has people watching. We'd be running blind with a newborn baby and a woman who can barely walk." "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to that meeting, but not the way Raphael expects." "What does that mean?" "It means I have about 6 hours to figure out how to turn his trap against him. Get some sleep, Marcus. And thank you for everything." Adrian ended the call and returned to Lena's room one more time. She was sleeping deeply now, her face peaceful despite everything. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching her breathe. Then he pulled out his phone and made one final call. The number belonged to someone he hadn't spoken to in 5 years, someone who'd retired from the life and moved to a quiet suburb, someone who owed Adrian a debt that could never be fully repaid. The phone rang 6 times before a groggy voice answered. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" "Hello, Joseph. I need your help." There was a long pause. "Adrian? Adrian Moretti?" "Yes." "I thought you were dead, or at least smart enough to never call me again. I need one favor, one last favor, and then we're even. The debt is paid." Joseph Caruso had been Adrian's mentor once, back when Adrian was just a street kid with more ambition than sense. Joseph had taught him everything: how to read people, how to negotiate, how to survive in a world built on betrayal. But 5 years ago, Joseph had asked to leave the organization. He'd wanted to retire, to spend his remaining years with his grandchildren instead of looking over his shoulder. Adrian could have refused, could have made an example of him. Instead, he'd let Joseph walk away with his life and his savings intact, a gift that had earned eternal gratitude and an unpaid debt. "What do you need?" Joseph asked, and Adrian could hear him getting out of bed, moving to somewhere private. "Information and advice. Rafael Costa is making a move against me. He's set up a meeting tomorrow that's really an ambush. 6 armed men, private location, no witnesses. If I show up, I'm dead. If I don't show up, he'll come after my family." "You have a family now?" "As of yesterday, yes. A son, 3 years old. I just found out about him." Joseph whistled softly. "That changes things. What do you want from me?" "I want to know if there's any way to walk into that room and walk out alive. You've been in situations like this before. You've survived impossible odds. How did you do it?" "I cheated," Joseph said simply. "I made sure I always had leverage they didn't know about, information they couldn't afford to have revealed, insurance policies that would trigger automatically if I died. The key to surviving in our world, Adrian, is making yourself more valuable alive than dead. Rafael doesn't care about value. He wants power. Then you make him care. You find something he needs more than he needs your death, and you dangle it in front of him like bait." Adrian's mind was already working through possibilities. What did Rafael need? What could Adrian offer that would be worth more than vengeance? "Thank you, Joseph. Go back to sleep. We're even now." "Adrian, wait. Whatever you're planning, be smart. Don't throw your life away for pride. You have a son now. That means you have something to live for. Don't forget that." "I won't." Adrian hung up and stood at the window, watching the city wake up as dawn broke over the skyline. Somewhere out there, Rafael was preparing for their meeting, positioning his men, rehearsing his speech, probably imagining what it would feel like to finally step out of Adrian's shadow. But Rafael had made one critical mistake. He'd assumed Adrian would come to that meeting the same way he'd lived his entire adult life, alone, relying only on himself, trusting no one. Rafael didn't know about Joseph's advice, didn't know about the information Marcus had gathered, didn't know that Adrian had spent the last 6 hours building a strategy instead of accepting his fate. And most importantly, Rafael didn't understand that Adrian wasn't the same man who'd walked into that hospital yesterday. That man had been a king willing to sacrifice anything for his empire. The man standing at this window was a father willing to sacrifice his empire for his family. It was a subtle difference, but in the world they inhabited, subtle differences decided who lived and who died. Adrian returned to his chair beside Lena's bed and pulled out the piece of paper he'd given her earlier. On the back, he began writing a new set of instructions. Not for Lena this time, but for himself. A plan that was risky, maybe even insane, but had a chance, however slim, of working. By the time the sun was fully up, Adrian had made his choice. He knew what he was going to do, what he was going to say, and what he was willing to sacrifice to make it work. He just hoped it would be enough. Lena woke just after 7 to find Adrian still sitting beside her bed, his eyes bloodshot but alert. He'd clearly been awake all night. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "No, I had too much to think about." She studied his face, noting the hard set of his jaw and the determined gleam in his eyes. This wasn't the grief-stricken man who'd been ready to accept his fate last night. This was someone who'd made a decision and committed to it completely. You have a plan, she said. It wasn't a question. I have something. Whether it works or not, I won't know until I'm in that room. Tell me. Adrian hesitated, then shook his head. The less you know, the safer you are. If Raphael comes asking questions later, you need to be able to honestly say you don't know what I did. I don't care about safe, I care about you coming back alive. That's the goal. He leaned forward and took her hand. Lena, I need you to do something for me. When I leave here in a few hours, I need you to call this number. He handed her a business card with a name she didn't recognize. Her name is Patricia Reeves. She's an attorney, not one of mine, someone completely independent. If anything happens to me today, she has instructions to help you access the accounts I told you about. She'll also help you establish new identities, get you and Lucas somewhere safe. Adrian, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared, but you should also be prepared. His grip tightened on her hand. I meant what I said last night. I'm going to fight to come back to you, but if I can't, I need to know you won't fall apart. Our son needs at least one parent who survives this. Lena wanted to argue, to rage against the unfairness of it all. Instead, she pulled him close and held him as tightly as her weakened body would allow. Come back to us. Whatever it takes. Whoever you have to become. Just come back. I will. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. I love you. Tell Lucas I love him too. Tell him yourself, tonight, when you come back. Adrian pulled away and stood, straightening his wrinkled suit. He looked nothing like the polished crime boss who'd walked into the hospital 36 hours ago. He looked human, vulnerable, afraid, and somehow that made him seem stronger than ever. There's something else, he said. Vincent is going to come by later this morning. He's going to move you and Lucas to a different hospital, somewhere Raphael doesn't know about. Don't fight him on this, just go. You're moving us while you're meeting with Raphael? Yes. If things go wrong, I don't want you anywhere near this hospital. Raphael knows you're here, knows where Lucas is. That makes you leverage. Adrian's voice was firm. Vincent is one of the few people I still trust. He'll keep you safe until I can get to you. And if you can't get to us? Then Vincent has instructions to get you out of the city, out of the state. He has resources Raphael doesn't know about. Adrian moved toward the door, then stopped. Lena, I need you to promise me something. If I don't come back, if the worst happens, don't try to avenge me. Don't go looking for Raphael or anyone else. Just take Lucas and disappear. Live the life we should have had together. Be happy. That's all I want. Tears streamed down Lena's face. I can't promise that. You have to, for Lucas. He needs a mother who's alive and present, not one who's consumed by revenge. She wanted to refuse, to tell him she'd burn down the entire city if anything happened to him, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He was already carrying enough weight. She wouldn't add to his burden. Okay, she whispered. I promise. Adrian nodded once, then walked out of the room before she could see his own tears fall. The drive to the Obsidian Tower took 20 minutes. Marcus was behind the wheel, his face grim and focused. He disobeyed Adrian's order to leave the city, claiming he couldn't abandon his boss at a time like this. Adrian had been too tired to argue. You know this is probably a suicide mission, right? Marcus said as they navigated through morning traffic. I'm aware. And you're going anyway. I don't have a choice. If I run, Raphael wins. He takes the Empire and eventually finds my family. If I fight, at least I have a chance to change the outcome. What outcome are you hoping for? Adrian stared out the window at the city waking up around them. Honestly, I'm hoping Raphael is smart enough to take the deal I'm about to offer him. But if he's not, I'm hoping I'm fast enough to survive what comes next. You want to tell me what this deal is? No, because if it goes wrong, you need to be able to walk away clean. No knowledge, no complicity, no target on your back. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Boss, for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Your kid deserves a father who chose him over power. That's more than most of us in this life can say. They pulled into the underground garage of the Obsidian Tower at exactly 9:45. Adrian had timed it deliberately, 15 minutes before the scheduled meeting, early enough to show he wasn't afraid, late enough to keep Raphael waiting and uncertain. The garage was eerily quiet. Adrian's footsteps echoed as he walked toward the private elevator that led directly to the penthouse. Marcus stayed with the car, engine running, ready to move if needed. Adrian pressed the button and waited. The elevator arrived with a soft chime, doors sliding open to reveal an empty car. No guards, no ambush in the lobby. Raphael was saving all his cards for the penthouse. The ride up 43 floors felt eternal. Adrian used the time to center himself, to go through the plan one more time. Everything hinged on his ability to read Raphael, to understand what the man wanted more than revenge. And Adrian thought he knew. Raphael had spent 5 years as second in command, watching Adrian make decisions, reap rewards, command respect. He'd lived in Adrian's shadow, always the lieutenant, never the king. What Raphael wanted wasn't just Adrian's death, it was his throne, his legacy, his empire, and Adrian was going to give it to him. The elevator doors opened onto the penthouse conference room. It was exactly as Marcus had described, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And positioned around the room, trying to look casual but failing, were 6 armed men. Raphael sat at the head of the conference table, looking every inch the conquering king. He smiled when he saw Adrian step out of the elevator alone. "You came? I wasn't sure you would." "You gave me a compelling invitation." Adrian walked into the room with his hands visible, making no sudden movements. "Nice delegation you've assembled. Are they here for negotiation or execution?" "That depends entirely on you." Raphael gestured to a chair across from him. "Sit. Let's talk like civilized men." Adrian sat, acutely aware of the 6 guns trained on him from various angles. He could see Lorenzo to his left, Tommy, the knife, near the windows, and 4 other enforcers he recognized but didn't know well. All of them looked tense, ready for violence. "So," Raphael said, leaning back in his chair, "you wanted to negotiate the terms of your departure from the organization. I'm listening." "I want out, completely out. I'll transfer all my holdings to you. The accounts, the territories, the contacts. Everything I've built over 15 years, it's yours. In exchange, you leave my family alone. Forever. No surveillance, no threats, no attempts to use them as leverage. They disappear from your world completely." Raphael's smile widened. "That's very generous. But I'm curious. What makes you think I need to negotiate? I have 6 guns pointed at you right now. I could just take everything and eliminate the threat you pose in one move." "You could, but then you'd have a problem." "What problem?" Adrian reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Every gun in the room immediately raised, safeties clicking off. He pulled out a small USB drive and placed it on the table. "That drive contains 15 years of evidence. Every deal we've made, every payoff, every body, every dirty cop and corrupt official on our payroll. Names, dates, bank records, photographs, everything." Raphael's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "I'm not. I've been keeping insurance for years, Raphael, because in this life, you never know when your closest ally will become your worst enemy. Turns out, I was right to be paranoid." Adrian leaned forward. "If I don't check in with my attorney every 6 hours, that information goes straight to the FBI, the state police, and every major news outlet in the city. And you'll be the first name on the list. You'd go down too. I'm already dead in this scenario. I don't care. But you'd lose everything. The empire you're trying to build would crumble before you even finished taking it. Every family we've ever worked with would know you as the man whose carelessness brought down the entire organization." The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Raphael's jaw clenched and unclenched as he processed the implications. "You're lying," he said finally. "You wouldn't keep evidence like that. It would be too dangerous. If anyone found it, that's why I kept it encrypted and hidden for 15 years. That's why only 3 people in the world know it exists, and one of them is sitting across from me right now." Adrian picked up the USB drive and held it up. "This is a copy. Just a sample to prove I'm telling the truth. Look at it if you don't believe me." Raphael snatched the drive and turned to one of his men. "Lorenzo, verify this, now." Lorenzo pulled out a laptop and inserted the drive. His expression grew darker as he scrolled through the files. "Boss, this is real. Financial records from the Sanchez deal, photographs from the Volkov meeting, recordings of—" He looked up, his face pale. "This is enough to put all of us away for life." Raphael's hands curled into fists on the table. You traitorous son of a bitch. You've been documenting our operations this entire time? I documented everything, Adrian corrected calmly. As insurance, because I learned a long time ago that the only way to survive in this world is to make yourself valuable. And right now, Raphael, I'm the most valuable person in this room. Because if you kill me, everyone goes down. But if you let me walk away, you get the empire you've always wanted, and the evidence disappears forever. How do I know you'll actually destroy it? Because I don't want it anymore. I want out, Raphael. I want to raise my son somewhere safe, somewhere he'll never have to know what his father did to survive. The evidence is worthless to me if I'm living a quiet life, but it's a nuclear bomb to you if I'm dead. Raphael stood and began pacing, his mind clearly racing through options. The 6 enforcers watched nervously, uncertain whether they were about to witness a negotiation or an execution. This is manipulation, Raphael said. You're cornering me. I'm giving you a choice. Take the empire peacefully and let me go, or kill me and watch everything burn. Adrian's voice was steady. I know which option I'd choose. The question is whether your pride is worth more than your ambition. My pride. Raphael spun to face him. You humiliated me, Adrian. For years I've stood beside you while everyone treated me like your errand boy. Every decision had to be approved by you. Every plan had to fit your vision. I've earned the right to lead, and you're trying to take that away with blackmail. I'm not taking anything away. I'm handing you exactly what you want. The only thing I'm asking for in return is my family's safety. That's a small price to pay for an empire. Raphael stared at him for a long moment. How do I know the evidence will actually be destroyed? How do I know you won't keep a copy, use it against me later? Because unlike you, I keep my word. Adrian stood slowly, hands still visible. I've never lied to you, Raphael. Not once in 5 years. Even when I pushed Lena away. Even when I made decisions you disagreed with, I was always honest about my reasoning. I'm being honest now. Let me go, and the evidence is yours to destroy. Come after my family, and it goes public. Those are your only 2 options. There's a third option, Raphael said quietly. I kill you now, then spend the next 6 hours finding your attorney and forcing them to stop the evidence from being released. My attorney doesn't have the evidence. She just has instructions to release it if I don't check in. The actual files are stored in 3 separate locations with dead man switches. Even if you found her, even if you tortured the information out of her, you'd never reach all 3 locations in time. And the moment the first switch triggers, all 3 release simultaneously. Adrian could see Raphael doing the math, weighing the risks. It was a gamble. Everything Adrian had said was true, but the system wasn't quite as foolproof as he'd made it sound. There were vulnerabilities, ways Raphael could potentially stop the release if he acted fast enough and got lucky. But Raphael didn't know that. All he knew was that Adrian had just turned a certain victory into a potential catastrophe. This is cowardice, Raphael said finally. Running away, abandoning everything we built. That's not the Adrian Moretti I've known for 5 years. No, it's not. The Adrian Moretti you knew would have walked into this room ready to fight to the death. He would have chosen pride over survival, power over family. But that man died 2 days ago when I found out I had a son. Adrian's voice softened. I'm not running away, Raphael. I'm running towards something better, something that actually matters. You want the empire? Take it. Rule it better than I did. Build it into something even more powerful. I don't care anymore. All I care about is being there when my son takes his first steps. The words hung in the air. Around the room, the enforcers shifted uncomfortably. These were men who'd chosen power and violence over normal lives, and here was their leader, the most feared man in the city, walking away for something as simple as fatherhood. Raphael sat down slowly, his expression unreadable. You really mean it? You'd give up everything? Yes. For a woman and a baby, you barely know. For my family, yes. Raphael was quiet for so long that Adrian started to wonder if he'd miscalculated. Then, slowly, Raphael nodded. All right, here's my counteroffer. You give me everything. The accounts, the territories, the contacts, all of it. You introduce me to our partners as your chosen successor. Make it clear you're stepping down voluntarily. You spend the next week making the transition smooth, ensuring everyone knows I have your blessing. And in exchange, I give you your life and your family walks away clean. And the evidence? You destroy it, all of it. Every copy, every backup. And you do it in front of me so I know it's really gone. Adrian considered this. Raphael was being smart. He wanted legitimacy, not just power. He wanted Adrian's endorsement to smooth the transition and prevent internal conflicts. It made sense. 1 week, Adrian said. I'll give you 1 week to make the transition. But the evidence doesn't get destroyed until my family is safely out of the city and settled somewhere new. That's non-negotiable. 2 weeks. I need 2 weeks to consolidate power properly. 10 days. And we announce the transition today. The longer we wait, the more likely someone makes a move against both of us. Raphael drummed his fingers on the table, thinking, 10 days. But you stay visible during that time. You attend meetings, make calls, act like nothing has changed. The moment people think you're weak or checked out, everything falls apart. Agreed. But my family stays protected. You assign 2 of your best men to watch the hospital. Make sure no one from the Garcia family or anyone else tries anything. Done. Raphael stood and extended his hand across the table. We have a deal? Adrian looked at that hand for a long moment. This was it. The moment he chose between his old life and his new one. Between the throne and his family. Between the monster and the man. He shook Raphael's hand. We have a deal. The tension in the room evaporated instantly. The 6 enforcers lowered their weapons, some of them looking almost disappointed that they wouldn't get to use them. Raphael's expression was triumphant, barely contained. Lorenzo, spread the word, Raphael ordered. Meeting at the Riverside warehouse tonight, 8 o'clock, all senior members. We're announcing a leadership transition. As Lorenzo pulled out his phone to make calls, Raphael turned back to Adrian. You know, part of me always wondered if this day would come. If you'd ever find something worth more than the Empire. And? I'm glad it did. You were getting soft anyway. Too much mercy, too much hesitation. The organization needs someone willing to make the hard choices you couldn't anymore. Adrian almost smiled. Raphael thought he was complimenting himself, but really he was revealing his weakness. Raphael would rule through fear and violence, burning through allies and making enemies at every turn. Within a year, he'd either be dead or drowning in a war he couldn't win. But that was no longer Adrian's problem. I need to make a call, Adrian said. Let my people know I'm alive. Make it quick. We have a lot of work to do. Adrian stepped away from the table and dialed Lena's number. She answered on the first ring. Adrian? I'm alive. It's over. He heard her sob with relief. What happened? Are you okay? I'm fine. We made a deal. I'm getting out, Lena. We're getting out. I don't understand how. I'll explain everything later. Right now, I need you to trust me. Vincent should be there soon to move you and Lucas. Go with him. I'll meet you at the new location tonight. Tonight? Not now? I have to stay here for a few more days. Transition things properly. Make sure the deal holds. But I promise you in 10 days, we're gone. New city, new life, new everything. Adrian, I'm scared. I know, but it's almost over. Just hold on a little longer. He could feel Raphael watching him, probably trying to gauge whether he was having second thoughts. I have to go. I love you. Tell Lucas I'll see him soon. I love you too. Please be careful. Adrian ended the call and returned to the table where Raphael was already sketching out a transition plan on a notepad. For the next 3 hours, they worked through details. Which accounts would transfer when, how to approach various partners, what to tell the men about why Adrian was stepping down. It was surreal, negotiating the dismantling of his own empire with the man who'd betrayed him. But Adrian forced himself to stay focused. Every detail mattered. One misstep and the whole house of cards could collapse. Around noon, Vincent arrived at the penthouse looking confused and wary. He shot Adrian a questioning look that clearly asked, "Why are you still alive?" "Vincent, good," Raphael said smoothly. "Adrian and I have come to an arrangement. He's stepping down, and I'm taking over. We're making it official tonight at the warehouse meeting." Vincent's eyes widened. "Sir, is this true?" Adrian nodded. "It's true. I'm getting out, Vincent, moving on to something better. And I need you to do something for me. There's a woman at St. Catherine's Hospital, Lena Hart, and a baby in the NICU. I need you to move them to a secure location, somewhere Raphael's people can watch over them, but where my enemies can't find them." "The safe house in the Northern District?" Vincent suggested. Perfect. Get them moved within the hour. And Vincent, this is important. Keep them safe. They're the only thing that matters to me now. Vincent studied Adrian's face for a long moment, then nodded. I'll protect them with my life. Thank you. As Vincent left to carry out his orders, Raphael leaned back in his chair. You really do love her, don't you? This isn't just about the kid. Yes, I love her. I loved her 3 years ago when I pushed her away, and I love her now. The kid just made me realize I couldn't keep running from that. Love makes you weak. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only thing that ever made me strong enough to walk away from this. Adrian gestured at the room, the tower, the empire below. You'll understand someday, when you find something worth more than power. Raphael laughed. I doubt that. Power is all I've ever wanted, and now I finally have it. The rest of the day blurred together. Phone calls, meetings, paperwork. Adrian introduced Raphael to key contacts, vouched for him with partners who might otherwise be skeptical of the transition. It was exhausting, walking the tightrope between making Raphael look legitimate and not revealing just how close the organization had come to falling apart. By 8 o'clock, they were at the Riverside warehouse where over 30 of the organization's senior members had gathered. The space was cavernous, filled with shipping containers and the smell of oil and salt water. Men stood in clusters, whispering among themselves, clearly confused about why they'd been summoned. Adrian stepped forward, and the room fell silent. Thank you all for coming on short notice, he began, his voice carrying through the space. I've called you here to make an announcement. After 15 years of leading this organization, I've decided to step down. The reaction was immediate. Shock, confusion, some outright disbelief. Adrian held up a hand for silence. This isn't a hostile takeover or a coup. This is my choice. I'm choosing to walk away while I still can, while I still have something left of myself that isn't stained by this life. Rafael Costa has been my second in command for 5 years. He's earned this position through loyalty, competence, and vision. He has my full endorsement and my complete confidence. As of tonight, he is your leader. Raphael stepped forward, looking every inch the conquering king. I know this is unexpected, but I want to assure you all that nothing fundamental will change. We'll continue to operate the same territories, maintain the same partnerships, uphold the same standards. The only difference is who's making the final decisions. Why now? Someone called from the back. Adrian recognized the voice. Tommy Marconi, a veteran who'd been with the organization almost as long as Adrian. Why walk away when we're at our strongest? Because being strong doesn't mean staying forever, Adrian replied. It means knowing when to pass the torch to someone who can take things even further. I've given this organization everything I can. Raphael will give it something I never could, a fresh perspective and the ruthlessness needed to thrive in the changing landscape. The last word was deliberate, a subtle dig at Raphael's methods that only a few in the room would catch. But it served its purpose, making Raphael look strong and decisive while allowing Adrian to maintain some dignity. The meeting continued for another hour with questions, concerns, and ultimately acceptance. These were practical men who valued stability over loyalty. As long as the money kept flowing and the operations kept running, they didn't much care who wore the crown. Finally, it was over. Adrian shook hands, accepted congratulations on his retirement, and made his way toward the exit. Raphael caught his arm just before he reached the door. That was well done. Better than I expected, honestly. I keep my promises. Remember that when it's time for you to keep yours. 10 days, then you and your family disappear, and we never speak again. That's the deal. Adrian walked out into the night air and found Marcus waiting with the car. He climbed into the back seat and let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for hours. How did it go, boss? Better than I hoped, worse than I wanted. But it's done. I'm out. Where to? The safe house in the Northern District. I need to see my family. The drive took 40 minutes through late evening traffic. Adrian used the time to call his attorney, Patricia, and confirm the next steps. The evidence would remain in place until he and his family were safely relocated. Then, and only then, would he destroy it, keeping his word to Raphael. It was a risk. Raphael could still betray him, could still send men after them once they'd left the city. But Adrian had to believe that the man's ambition was stronger than his desire for revenge. Raphael had what he wanted, the empire, the power, the throne. Going after Adrian afterward would be petty and dangerous, risking the stability of his new regime. At least, that's what Adrian was counting on. The safe house was a nondescript brownstone in a quiet residential neighborhood. Vincent met him at the door, his expression relieved. They're inside. The woman is tired but stable. The baby is sleeping. Any problems? None. The move went smoothly. I have 2 men watching the street, 2 more in the building across. No one's getting near them without us knowing. Adrian gripped Vincent's shoulder. Thank you for everything. When this is over, when I'm gone, take care of yourself. Raphael isn't as forgiving as I am. I know. I'm already making plans to retire. Got a place in Florida picked out. Vincent smiled slightly. Maybe we'll both get our happy endings. Maybe. Adrian climbed the stairs to the second floor and found Lena sitting in a rocking chair beside a portable bassinet. Lucas was asleep inside, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Lena looked up when Adrian entered, and the relief on her face nearly broke him. You came back. I promised I would. She stood carefully, still weak but stronger than she'd been that morning. Adrian crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. It's really over? She whispered against his chest. Not yet. 10 more days, then we leave and never look back. 10 days of what? Making sure the transition is smooth, ensuring Raphael doesn't have any reason to come after us once we're gone. Adrian pulled back to look at her face. I know it's not ideal. I know you want to leave right now, but this is the only way to make sure we're really safe. Lena nodded slowly. Okay, 10 days. But Adrian, promise me, no more risks. No more playing games with men who want you dead. Just survive. Make it through these 10 days and come home to us. I promise. He moved to the bassinet and looked down at his sleeping son. Lucas had grown in just the 2 days since Adrian had first seen him. His color was better, his breathing stronger. He looked less like a fragile newborn and more like a fighter who'd already won his first battle. He's beautiful, Adrian whispered. He's ours, Lena corrected, coming to stand beside him. And in 10 days, we're going to give him the life we both should have had. No violence, no fear, no looking over our shoulders. Just a normal family in a normal place. Adrian wanted to believe that was possible. Wanted to believe he could simply walk away from 15 years of blood and darkness and become someone new. But he knew better than anyone that the past had a way of catching up, no matter how fast you ran. Still, for Lena and Lucas, he would try. He would spend the rest of his life trying. What are you thinking? Lena asked softly. That I don't deserve this. Either of you. Maybe not. But you have us anyway. She took his hand and placed it on Lucas's chest, letting him feel the steady heartbeat beneath. And that means you have a chance to become someone who does deserve it. Someone better than the man you were. Adrian stood there in that quiet room, his hand on his son's chest and his future standing beside him. 10 more days of playing the role of crime boss. 10 more days of walking the line between his old life and his new one. Then freedom, or at least the closest thing to it he'd ever know. He just had to survive long enough to reach it. The next 10 days crawled by with agonizing slowness. Each morning, Adrian woke beside Lena and Lucas in the safe house, and each morning he forced himself to walk back into a world he was trying to leave behind. The transition wasn't as smooth as he'd hoped. 3 days in, the Garcia family tested Raphael's authority by hitting one of their distribution centers. Raphael responded with overwhelming force, burning down 2 of their establishments and sending a clear message that the new leadership was even more ruthless than the old. Adrian heard about it through Vincent and felt a twisted sense of vindication. He'd been right. Raphael would rule through fear and violence, making enemies faster than he could neutralize them. But it was no longer Adrian's problem to solve. On the 5th day, Adrian was transferring the last of the financial accounts when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Moretti. The voice was unfamiliar, cold and professional. My name is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. I think it's time we had a conversation. Adrian's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about 15 years of organized crime. Racketeering, money laundering, murder. We've been building a case against you for 3 years, Mr. Moretti, and we're very close to making arrests. Then arrest me, or stop wasting my time. I'm calling to offer you a deal. Full immunity in exchange for testimony against your organization. We know you're stepping down. We know Rafael Costa is taking over. What we need is someone who can give us the complete picture. Names, operations, evidence. Adrian laughed bitterly. You want me to be a rat? I want to give you a way out that doesn't end with you in prison or dead in an alley. You have a family now, Mr. Moretti, a son. Think about what kind of future you want for him. How do you know about my son? We know everything. We've been watching you for years. Agent Chen's voice softened slightly. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm offering you a legitimate exit. Witness protection, new identities, a chance to actually live the quiet life you're planning. All you have to do is cooperate. And if I refuse, then we continue building our case until we have enough to bring charges. And when that happens, everyone goes down. You, Rafael, everyone in your organization, including the people you care about who might get caught in the crossfire. Adrian closed his eyes. Another impossible choice, another threat to his family's safety. I need time to think. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires. She gave him a number to call. I hope you make the right choice, Mr. Moretti, for your son's sake. The call ended, and Adrian sat in his car outside the Obsidian Tower, his mind racing. The FBI had been watching him for 3 years, building a case. They knew about Lena and Lucas. They knew about the transition, and they were offering him a way out that seemed too good to be true. Because it probably was. Witness protection meant living under constant supervision, always looking over his shoulder, never knowing if his new identity had been compromised. It meant trusting the government to keep him safe when he'd spent his entire adult life trusting no one but himself. But it also meant legal immunity. It meant Lucas would never have to visit his father in prison. It meant a real chance at a normal life, not just running and hiding. Adrian called Patricia, his attorney, and explained the situation. It's not uncommon, she said carefully. The FBI often approaches people during transitions like this. They see an opportunity when someone's vulnerable, when they're trying to leave the life. The question is whether you trust them to keep their word. Do you think they will? Honestly? It depends on how valuable your testimony is. If you can give them Rafael and the entire organization, if you can provide evidence that leads to major convictions, then yes, they'll probably honor the deal. But if your information turns out to be less useful than they hoped, you could end up in a very difficult position. What would you advise? Patricia was quiet for a moment. As your attorney, I'd advise you to seriously consider it. The alternative is spending the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for either Rafael to betray you or your past to catch up. But as someone who's watched you try to become a better man these past 10 days, I'd say trust your instincts. You've survived this long by knowing who to trust and when to run. Don't stop trusting yourself now. That night, Adrian returned to the safe house to find Lena giving Lucas a bottle. The baby was nearly 3 weeks old now, stronger and healthier every day. His eyes were starting to focus, tracking movement and light. When Adrian entered the room, Lucas's gaze seemed to find him, and something in Adrian's chest cracked open. How was your day? Lena asked, carefully burping Lucas on her shoulder. Complicated. The FBI contacted me. Lena's face went pale. What did they want? They offered me a deal, immunity and witness protection in exchange for testimony against the organization. That's good, isn't it? That's what we wanted. A way out that's actually safe. Maybe. Or maybe it's just a different kind of trap. Adrian sat beside her on the couch. Witness protection means giving up control. Living where they tell us to live, following their rules, always dependent on them to keep us safe. And if they decide we're not valuable enough to protect anymore, then we're on our own anyway. Lena shifted Lucas to her other shoulder. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I have 2 days to decide. Lucas let out a small burp, and Lena smiled despite the tension. Look at that. Such a big boy. Adrian reached out and let Lucas wrap his tiny hand around his finger. The grip was stronger now, more purposeful. This small person was depending on him to make the right choice, to choose the path that would keep him safest. What do you think I should do? Adrian asked quietly. Lena looked at him with those warm brown eyes that had first captured him years ago. I think you should do whatever gives you peace. Not safety, not security, peace. Because I've watched you these past 10 days, Adrian. I've seen you trying to be two people at once. The crime boss who's transferring power and the father who wants to hold his son. And you can't keep doing both. Eventually, you have to choose which man you want to be. The father. I want to be Lucas's father. Nothing else matters. Then make the choice that lets you be that, even if it's hard, even if it's scary. The next morning, Adrian made his decision. He called Agent Chen and asked to meet in person. They agreed on a public location, a coffee shop in a busy downtown district where neither of them could try anything suspicious. Agent Chen turned out to be a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She ordered black coffee and got straight to business. Have you made a decision, Mr. Moretti? I have questions first. If I cooperate, if I give you everything you want, what happens to my family? They go into witness protection with you. New names, new location, new lives. The Marshal Service will handle the relocation and provide initial support. After that, you're on your own, but with a clean slate. And if someone finds us? If Raphael or one of the families tracks us down? That's extremely rare. The program has a very high success rate. But I won't lie to you, there are no absolute guarantees. The people you've crossed are resourceful and patient. If they want to find you badly enough, they might eventually succeed. So I'd be trading one kind of danger for another. No, you'd be trading certain danger for extremely unlikely danger. There's a difference. Agent Chen leaned forward. Mr. Moretti, I've read your file. I know what you've done, the lives you've destroyed. But I also know you have a chance to do something good. To take down an organization that's poisoned this city for decades. That counts for something. Does it? Does it make up for the people I've killed, the families I've ruined? No. But it's a start. And it's more than most men in your position ever do. Adrian stared into his coffee cup, seeing his reflection distorted in the dark liquid. I need to know my family will be protected. Not just relocated, actually protected. If I'm testifying against Raphael and everyone else, they'll know my family is the best way to hurt me. We'll put them in protective custody during the trial. After that, they relocate with you under new identities. The organization won't even know where to start looking. I need it in writing. The immunity deal, the protection guarantees, everything. And I need to review it with my attorney before I sign anything. Agent Chen pulled a folder from her briefcase. Already prepared. Take it to your lawyer. You have 24 hours to make your final decision. Adrian took the folder and left the coffee shop feeling like he was walking through a dream. Everything was happening so fast, too fast to process properly. 10 days ago, he'd been the most feared man in the city. Now he was considering becoming a federal informant. Patricia spent 3 hours reviewing the paperwork that afternoon. When she finally looked up, her expression was cautiously optimistic. It's legitimate. Full immunity for any crimes committed before the date of the agreement, including murder, racketeering, money laundering, everything. In exchange, you provide complete and truthful testimony regarding the organization's operations and leadership. What's the catch? The catch is that you have to testify. That means going to court, facing Raphael and the others, putting yourself in a very public spotlight. It also means that if you're caught lying or withholding information, the deal is void, and you can be prosecuted for everything. Can they protect us during the trial? They're offering protective custody, which is different from witness protection. You'd be in a secure location under constant guard until the trials are complete. Only after that would you enter the formal witness protection program. Adrian thought about Lena and Lucas spending months in a safe house, surrounded by federal agents, unable to live normally. But he also thought about the alternative, spending the rest of their lives running, always waiting for Raphael to decide the deal wasn't worth honoring. I'll do it, he said finally. Set up the meeting with Agent Chen. I'll sign the papers. That evening, Adrian sat Lena down and explained his decision. She listened quietly, holding Lucas against her chest, her expression unreadable. So we're really doing this, she said when he finished. Witness protection, new identities, starting over completely. Yes, it's the only way to be truly free of this life. What about Raphael? When he finds out you're cooperating with the FBI, he'll come after us. He won't have time. The FBI is planning coordinated raids based on my testimony. They'll arrest him and the others simultaneously before anyone has a chance to retaliate." Lena was quiet for a long moment, gently rocking Lucas. "I'm scared, Adrian. I know this is probably the right choice, but I'm terrified of what happens next." "So am I. But I'm more terrified of the alternative, of spending the rest of our lives waiting for someone to find us, someone to use Lucas against me. At least this way we have the government backing us up." "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. We meet with Agent Chen, I sign the agreement, and they move us into protective custody immediately." "What about the safe house? Vincent and the others watching us?" "I'll tell Vincent that something came up and we need to relocate on our own. He doesn't need to know about the FBI. The fewer people who know, the safer we are." That night, Adrian held his family close and tried not to think about everything that could go wrong. He'd spent 15 years surviving impossible situations, but this felt different. This time, he wasn't just risking his own life. He was risking theirs, too. The next morning, Adrian met with Agent Chen and signed the immunity agreement. Within hours, he, Lena, and Lucas were moved to a federal safe house outside the city. It was a nondescript ranch house in a quiet suburb, surrounded by tall fences and guarded by armed marshals. Over the next 3 weeks, Adrian spent his days in debriefing sessions with federal prosecutors. He told them everything: the structure of the organization, the key players, the illegal operations, the corrupt officials on the payroll. He drew organizational charts, provided account numbers, identified locations of evidence. It was exhausting and humiliating, laying bare 15 years of crimes. But every time Adrian felt himself wavering, he'd return to the safe house and hold Lucas, and remember why he was doing this. Lena grew stronger during this time. The physical recovery from childbirth was nearly complete, and she spent her days caring for Lucas and preparing for their new life. They chose new names together, something normal and unremarkable. Adrian Moretti would become David Mitchell, a software consultant. Lena would be Sarah Mitchell, a freelance writer. And Lucas would just be Lucas Mitchell, a boy with no connection to organized crime. The trials began 4 months after Adrian signed the immunity agreement. Raphael and 17 other high-ranking members of the organization were arrested in coordinated raids. The evidence Adrian had provided, combined with the testimony he would give, was enough to bring charges on dozens of counts. The day Adrian took the stand was the hardest of his life. He walked into that courtroom and saw Raphael sitting at the defense table, his expression a mixture of rage and betrayal. Their eyes met across the room, and Raphael mouthed a single word: dead. But Adrian didn't flinch. He raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, and proceeded to dismantle everything they'd built together. He testified for 3 days, described operations in meticulous detail, identified people in photographs, explained the hierarchy and decision-making process. And through it all, Raphael stared at him with such hatred that Adrian could feel it like a physical weight. The defense attorneys tried to tear him apart on cross-examination, painting him as a liar trying to save his own skin. And they weren't entirely wrong, but the evidence backed up every word Adrian said, and the jury could see that. 8 months after the trials began, the verdicts came down. Raphael was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The others received sentences ranging from 15 years to life. The organization that Adrian had spent 15 years building was effectively destroyed. That night, in the safe house, Adrian held Lena while she cried tears of relief. It was finally over. The trials were done, the threats neutralized. All that remained was to disappear into their new lives. 2 weeks later, the Moretti family ceased to exist. In their place, the Mitchell family relocated to a small town in Colorado, far from the city and everything they'd known. The house was modest but comfortable, with a yard where Lucas could play and neighbors who knew nothing about their past. Adrian, now David, found work as a freelance consultant, using skills he'd developed running legitimate businesses through the organization. The work was boring compared to what he'd done before, but it was honest, legal, safe. Lena, now Sarah, started writing again, something she'd loved before life had gotten complicated. She wrote stories about redemption and second chances, and if they were a little too detailed about criminal organizations, well, she claimed it was just good research. And Lucas grew. By his first birthday, he was walking, babbling, discovering the world with the fearless curiosity of a child who'd never known danger. He had no memory of hospitals or safe houses or the father his dad used to be. He only knew David Mitchell, the man who read him bedtime stories and pushed him on the swing in the backyard. On a cool evening in October, nearly 18 months after they'd left the city, Adrian stood in that backyard watching Lucas chase fireflies through the grass. The boy's laughter filled the air, pure and joyful, and completely unaware of the darkness his father had walked through to give him this moment. Lena came out and slipped her hand into Adrian's. "What are you thinking about? How different everything is. How impossible this would have seemed 2 years ago. Do you miss it? The power, the respect, the fear?" Adrian was quiet for a moment, honestly considering the question. "Sometimes I miss the certainty, knowing I could handle any problem, control any situation. But then Lucas laughs, or you smile at me across the dinner table, and I remember that I never actually had control. I was just pretending, building walls around myself and calling it strength. And now? Now I have something real, something I can't control or dominate or buy with money and violence, something I have to earn every single day." He pulled her closer. "I don't miss being Adrian Moretti. That man was already dead inside. I just didn't know it until I met our son." Lucas ran over to them, his small hands dirty from digging in the flower bed. "Daddy, look, bug!" Adrian crouched down to examine the beetle crawling across Lucas's palm. "That's a very nice bug. What should we name him?" "Mr. Wiggles." "Mr. Wiggles it is. Should we put him back in the garden so he can go home to his family?" Lucas nodded seriously and carefully placed the beetle in the dirt. Then he threw his arms around Adrian's neck in a spontaneous hug. "Love you, Daddy." The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. This child loved him, not because of what he could provide or protect him from, but simply because he was there, because he showed up every day, present and trying to be better. "I love you too, buddy. More than anything in the world." That night, after Lucas was asleep in his room surrounded by stuffed animals and picture books, Adrian and Lena sat on the porch watching the stars. The air was crisp and clean, nothing like the city they'd left behind. "Do you think he'll find us?" Lena asked quietly. "Raphael, do you think he'll ever get out and come looking?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably not, given his sentence. But even if he did, we'd handle it. We're not the same people who ran away anymore." "No, we're not." Lena rested her head on his shoulder. "We're better." Adrian thought about the man he'd been, the crime boss who'd ruled through fear, who'd pushed away the woman he loved to protect her, who'd missed 3 years of his son's life because of lies and pride. That man had been powerful but hollow, respected but alone. The man he was now had a different kind of strength, the strength to admit mistakes, to ask for help, to choose love over power. It wasn't the strength that commanded empires, but it was the strength that built families. "I've been thinking," Lena said, "about having another baby. Lucas should have a sibling, someone to grow up with." Adrian turned to look at her, surprised. "Really? Really? I know it's soon, and I know we're still adjusting to this new life, but I want our family to grow. I want to fill this house with love and laughter and all the normal chaos that comes with kids." She smiled. "Plus, you're pretty good at this whole dad thing. It would be a shame to waste that talent on just one kid." "I'm not sure I'm ready to." Adrian stopped himself and laughed. "Actually, that's a lie. I'd love nothing more than to have more children with you. To build a life so far removed from my past that it feels like a different universe." "Then let's do it. Let's build that life together." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the distant sound of cars on the highway. Somewhere in the city they'd left behind, Raphael was sitting in a prison cell, probably still plotting revenge. The Garcia family was probably fighting for territory in the power vacuum left by the organization's collapse. The world Adrian had inhabited for 15 years was still turning, still full of violence and betrayal, but it was turning without him. And that felt like the greatest victory of all. Inside the house, Lucas cried out in his sleep. Adrian stood immediately, the protective instinct that would never fully leave him kicking in. But it was just a dream. By the time Adrian reached the bedroom, Lucas had already settled back down, clutching his favorite stuffed bear. Adrian stood in the doorway watching his son sleep, this perfect, innocent creature who who would never have to know what his father had been. Who would grow up with bedtime stories and baseball games and all the normal disappointments and joys of childhood. Lena appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. He's going to be okay. We all are. I know, I just needed to make sure. You always do. That's what makes you a good father. They returned to their bedroom and climbed into bed, holding each other in the darkness. Tomorrow, Adrian would wake up and go to his boring consultant job. Lena would take Lucas to the park and work on her writing. They'd have dinner together as a family, give Lucas a bath, read him stories, tuck him in. It was so normal, it was almost surreal. But it was also exactly what Adrian had risked everything to achieve. As he drifted off to sleep with Lena warm against his side, Adrian thought about the call that had shattered his world 2 years ago. The call that had brought him to a hospital where he discovered he had a son. The call that had started him on this journey from king to commoner, from monster to man. He'd lost an empire, but he'd gained a family. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Moretti, now David Mitchell, felt something he'd never known before in the darkness of his former world. He felt peace. In the morning, he woke to Lucas jumping on the bed, laughing and shouting, "Pancakes, Daddy! Pancakes!" And Adrian laughed too, scooping his son into his arms and carrying him toward the kitchen where Lena was already starting breakfast. This was his kingdom now, not built on fear or violence or power, built on love and sacrifice and the simple joy of being present for the people who mattered most. And as Adrian flipped pancakes while Lucas sat on the counter chattering about Mr. Wiggles the beetle, he knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. The old Adrian Moretti would have seen this life as weakness, as a defeat, but the man he'd become understood that walking away from power to build something real took more courage than any empire ever had. Outside, the Colorado sun climbed higher in a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Birds sang in the trees. A neighbor waved from across the street. Lucas ate his pancakes with the intense concentration only a toddler could muster. And Adrian stood at the kitchen window with his second cup of coffee, watching his son and his wife, and felt the weight of 15 years of darkness finally lift from his shoulders. He was free. They were free. And they had the rest of their lives to build something beautiful from the ashes of what he'd left behind. It was more than redemption. It was rebirth. And it was enough.